Hey guys, hope you're all having a great day. I am super excited to be making this video because it's not something I was planning to do for this season, but I am going to be removing this birch tree and replacing it with a tree that is 10 times better than this birch tree that's been here. So you're probably wondering why I'm getting rid of this birch tree, and I just want to give you a quick backstory on it. This is actually the first thing that we planted in this yard when we moved in 2020, and it's grown maybe a foot or two in the 4 years that we've had it. The problem is you can see it doesn't really have any leaves on it compared to the rest of the trees, which do happen to have quite a bit of leaves still in the middle of October. This tree has honestly been defoliated since the beginning of August. What happens with this birch tree is it flushes out nice new growth every year, but also to say that there is a lot of dead growth that is left over from the year before that I have to prune out. Flushes out new green growth. About a month in, especially as we get some rain, it starts to develop yellow and black spots on it. Those leaves develop more and more spots on it. The leaves drop and it's completely defoliated by about July, August. I've even tried preventatively and actively spraying with some type of organic fungicide so that way I can stop the fungus from spreading so fast. I also have been removing the leaves completely every single year to make sure that there's nothing left from the year beforehand. But I think that there's a birch tree right about over here, which happens to defoliate a little earlier as well, and then there's a river birch back here. I'm not sure the specifics on which types of birches get this type of blight, but this is a weeping silver birch that just does not do very well with birch blight. It looks pretty in the spring, but the rest of the season, it just kind of looks dead or half dead and just isn't exactly the look that I'm going for. So I have a tree that I am really excited to be planting here that I think is going to do much better than this birch. And this is what I'm going to be replacing it with. I'm going to go over all the details and the information on this tree after I've planted it so you can kind of see in its spot what it's going to look like. But this is a Carolina Sweetheart Redbud. And just from this picture, you can see just how beautiful this tree is. Also, look at how beautiful this fall foliage is. It's got beautiful, yellow, orange, even some reddish pink tones on the backside of these leaves. Really beautiful tree. And trust me, I've tried everything that I can with this birch tree to try to get it to survive, but I'm just done fighting this battle. It's not really worth my time. And eventually this is just gonna be my mom taking care of this garden, so I don't wanna give her, a major spraying job every single year for a tree. I'd rather put something in that does better. So I'm gonna be removing this birch tree, planting the redbud in its place, and I'll show you what it looks like and then all the information at the end. Okay, so the birch tree is removed, the redbud is planted, and I honestly could not be any happier than I am right now seeing this in this spot. This is a truly gorgeous tree. In fact, it actually looks a lot like a flamethrower redbud right now just because of how beautiful the fall foliage is on it. But naturally in the season, what happens is it starts off by having pink flowers just like any other redbud would have. Then it emerges super deep red leaves that start to turn into more of a pinkish color, and then they take on some green and yellow tones where you actually, for quite a while in the spring, you actually see like green that's variegated with white and then pink margins as well. It's incredible what this tree is able to do. And then as the season progresses, and I'm sure as it gets hotter, then you start to see more of just the green and white, and then eventually kind of green. But then it colors up again for the fall, so you really get 3 full seasons of interest. I mean, there's really not much of a time that this redbud doesn't look beautiful. And even in the winter, because it has kind of this like zigzagged effect to it, where it's like opposite, you still get a really cool texture from this tree in the wintertime. But this is what I'm really excited about with this tree as well. I just want to preface this by saying that I'm standing in this bed right now because there's all this grass that I'm starting from seed, so I can't show you in the exact spot I was thinking, but you can see that there's this wide grass pathway here. We have the redbud planted here and this Kwanzaa flowering cherry. When I knew that I wanted to get rid of the birch tree, one thought that I had in mind was to have 2 trees that would kind of merge together and create this beautiful canopy that you could walk underneath through this pathway. So we've got the Kwanzaa cherry, which generally grows wider than it does tall, and then this redbud, which does kind of the same thing. So this grows about 20 to 30 feet tall and then 30 feet wide. So it's going to be a decent sized tree, and that grows to be about the same, maybe a little bit taller than the redbud. But what's beautiful about both of these trees is they're going to have those arching branches that come out, and I wanted to have them on either side. And then I'm thinking at some point we're going to end up getting a shed for the house just because I'm running out of space in the garage, and having a little shed tucked in back over here would create such a beautiful space. It's a nice pathway that leans right into it, and then you walk underneath this canopy of the 2 trees. I'm getting so excited just thinking about it, and I have no idea when that's going to happen, but I just hope for some point in the future that that's what we can see. And hopefully as these trees really start to grow, they will fill in that way and just create something beautiful. What's also really cool is that the redbud and the Kwanzaa cherry are going to bloom at similar times, and they both have a nice pink flower, but it's 2 completely different types of flowers. The redbud has much more of like a fine texture flower, whereas the Kwanzaa cherry, because the flowers are a lot bigger and fluffier, you get more of that bold texture. So I think that even though they have the same color flowers, they're going to look totally different from one another, but still match together very well. Now in terms of placement, first of all, you can see it looks like it's scooted over a little bit to this bed. It maybe could, I could probably extend this circle out a little bit more. It is moved probably about a foot back from where the birch tree was, only because it does get 30 feet wide, which is quite wide. I don't mind if some of the trees grow into each other a little bit, but we've got this here, and then I have this Hinoki cypress, which ends up getting about like 12 feet wide. And I think when I space them out, they're only about maybe like 9 feet apart, I would say. So they're definitely going to grow a little bit into each other. They do have opposite shapes. I mean, this is going to grow like a pyramid shape, and that's going to grow more of a vase shape. So I'm not too concerned, but I tried to just scoot it back as much as I could, and then also give room from the redbud to this pine here, which I can't remember exactly how wide that gets, but I think it's like 15 feet or so. So this bed might have to get extended out a little bit more. But again, same thing. I mean, that has more of like a cylindrical shape to it, I would say, from what I've seen some more mature specimens. So I think that there'll still be sufficient space to walk underneath this tree before getting to the edge of here. But I just wanted to try to space it out as much as I could. And then same thing you can see from here over to the cherry. There's going to be plenty of room, but they'll still definitely grow into each other with time. Now, 2 other important things I just wanted to mention about this redbud. First of all, it's actually hardy in zones 6 through 9, whereas a lot of redbuds are hardy in zones 5 through 9. Now, I'm in a zone 6B, so I'm kind of closer to the edge of that margin. I'm not too concerned. If I was in 6A, I'd be a little bit more concerned. Redbuds do really great in our area. They're also a great native, so naturally they're just going to do better than some other varieties. But again, if we have a super cold winter, it could do a little bit of damage to this. So just one thing to keep in mind if you are looking for redbuds, this one is not as hardy as like the traditional eastern redbud or forest pansy, other varieties like that. The other thing that's important to keep in mind is when you are dealing with leaves that aren't green or kind of like a dark purple color, they can tend to burn a little bit, especially if you're dealing with any white variegated plant. Generally, anything that's variegated does best in more of a part shade situation, especially depending on the zone. If you're planting this tree and you're in like a zone 7, 8, 9, I would definitely try to give it some protection from the late afternoon sun, because that's what can happen really is you can have the edges of the leaves burn. I've seen it on dogwoods, I've seen it on other variegated trees. My Japanese maple burned, that has a variegation to it. So being in a zone 6, I'm not as concerned about it, but these calorie pears in my neighbor's yard actually do end up shading it for like the latest portion of the day, and this birch tree does provide some filtered shade from kind of like mid-afternoon on. So I think this is kind of in the perfect spot. If you're in a zone 6, it should be able to tolerate pretty much full sun, and you can still plant it in full sun in those higher zones, but just keep in mind that you might want to give it some protection if you're able to. That's all. But nonetheless, this tree is planted. When I did initially lift the birch tree before I decided to get rid of it, I put a ton of compost and topsoil in here. So I didn't really add too much in here. I added like I don't even know, 1/8 of a bag of compost into here, and I realized it wasn't necessary. I added the rest of my bag of biotone starter fertilizer, so hopefully it roots in a little bit better. But there was so much good organic material in here that it doesn't really need anything because the birch tree didn't use much of it this season. And I will say about the birch tree, I ended up saving the last 4 logs from that tree that I can use in like winter decorations and winter containers, that type of thing. So I'm not exactly sure what I want to use it for, but they still had a nice kind of like grayish white color to it. So I figured at least if there's anything I could save from this birch tree, it would be that. But again, I know that there's some people thinking, well, what if you just gave it to somebody else or was able to do anything? I actually asked my garden center if they wanted the tree to place on the property somewhere or anything like that. But again, it's just going to be that same thing where whoever else grows this tree is going to have the same issue with it defoliating. It's not going to grow very fast or at all because I saw like a foot of growth in a matter of 4 years. So it's just not really worth having that type of tree. And it's just, you know, you learn as you grow. So I'm really happy about this Redbud. I've had good success with the forest pansy that I grew, so I am so excited to see how this does. I can't believe the color on this right now. I mean, it's honestly just as good as on the other side here, these maple trees that we have in the front yard that are planted throughout the neighborhood. It's like just as bright of a color, but you also get literally 2 other full seasons of color on this. I just wanted to add one more note as well, because I said at the beginning of this video that I didn't think it would be possible for me to buy this tree. I'm not gonna lie, this was definitely an expensive tree. I pay for it with my own money. I seriously, like all these plants that you see here, just about everything I've bought with my own money. And it's honestly because of you guys that I'm able to do this. And I think I haven't really said that in a video before, but I just wanted to thank you so much for watching my videos, for commenting, for just taking the time to, you know, see what it is that I'm doing. I really appreciate your encouragement and the friends that I've made online, and it's honestly been life-changing just so far, just in the couple of years that I've been doing this, and I really, really appreciate that. I'm still kind of like in shock of, you know, some of the things I've been able to do and all that good stuff. I'm really excited for the future. I have some exciting updates for you that I can't wait to share soon. I just want everything to be finalized first. But I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video, enjoy what it is that I'm doing, and seriously, I love you guys from the bottom of my heart. I wouldn't have gone this far if it wasn't for you. So thank you very much. I really appreciate that. I hope you guys like this video. Like I said, like I always say, any questions or comments, feel free to put them in the comment section down below, and I will see you in the next video. I forgot to add this in when I was talking about the birch tree, but one other thing about why I also decided to take out the birch tree is that that whole area that I was starting grass in is actually where our septic system is. In fact, we have poor grass because we had to have the entire septic system replaced when we moved in. I don't know, some sort of issue with it. Wasn't for us to deal with though, thankfully. But anyways, so we have to be careful with what we plant in the yard because we don't want the roots to interfere with the septic system too much. I initially wanted to put a weeping willow in when we moved, and that's like an absolute no-go if you have a septic system. But a birch isn't really all that much better, and we already have a birch pretty close to the septic system, so I just didn't want to put anything else too crazy, but I didn't learn that until after we planted it, so it's just another reason to get rid of that birch and put something in that has less invasive of a root system. So that's all I wanted to add.